How's it going, everyone? This is Calvin from the Collections Department at the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium, and I'm here to talk to you today about how scientists identify California grunion. We talk a lot about grunion at the aquarium, but one of the things we often don't mention is how a scientist differentiates between grunion and other species that look very similar to them. So I'm going to show you a couple of quick, easy methods that we use to accomplish that. So the California grunion belongs in a family known as the Atheranopsidae, or the New World silversides, and they are actually one of 108 described species of New World silverside around the world. So one of the ways that we can narrow this down is we look at geographical location. So in the Southern California Bight and the coastal regions, there's actually 4 possible species of Atheranopsid that can be found there, and only 3 of which are actually relatively common. So we have the California grunion being one, and we have the top smelt, and we also have the jack smelt. So we can also look at behavior. Specifically, the California grunion has a very unique reproductive behavior. Only a handful of species of fish around the world actually exhibit this behavior, and that is beach spawning. So during the springtime, at night during high tide, they will come up onto the beach to spawn. So if you happen to come across this particular spectacle, then you can be pretty darn certain that you, in fact, are looking at grunion. But let's say you didn't have the opportunity to look at this behavior. Maybe someone handed you a jar of fish, you found some in a trawl net, or maybe you caught some off a pier, and you had to identify them that way. So one of the ways that we do this is we look at morphometrics. And morphometrics basically are just unique physical characteristics that you can use to separate the different species. So for example, we have the top smelt and the California grunion. A very common characteristic that a lot of bony fish have are what's known as protrusible jaws. And what this is basically when the premaxilla, which is this bone right here, I like to call it the mustache bone, can actually separate away from the rest of the face and protrude out from away from their face like this. Now in the case of a top smelt, that protrusible jaw comes out straight out in front of them. However, if you look at the California grunion, you will see that there is a very obvious downward turn of their protrusible jaws. So in that situation, if you came across these fish and you saw that downward protrusible jaw, then you know that you have California grunion, assuming you found it in California. Now, let's say you determine that it wasn't a grunion, then it can either be a top smelt or a jack smelt. Well, a scientist is not going to be happy with just leaving it at that. We want to identify things down to species whenever possible. So let's take a look at the two. If you didn't have a grunion, then you either have a top smelt or a jack smelt. So we can look at another morphometric characteristic. So we can look at the first dorsal fin, and we can look at the anal fin. Now if you look at the back of the first dorsal fin and the front of the anal fin, you'll actually see they line up pretty nicely. However, if you look at the same 2 fins in a jack smelt, you'll actually see there's a very distinct separation between the two. They don't actually line up at all. A quick, easy way to remember that is top smelt begins with the letter T, and of course jack smelt begins with the letter J. So now, armed with these 2 pieces of knowledge, the next time you go out on one of our grunion runs, you can show this knowledge off and let everyone know that you learned this from the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium. Thanks a lot for listening, and I will see you next time.